Have you ever been in a relationship with a woman who seemed absolutely amazing at the beginning? Kind, warm, supportive, understanding. She seemed like someone who really saw you. And then slowly, something started changing. The kindness turned into criticism. The affection turned into control. The support turned into manipulation. And you found yourself asking a question that a lot of men ask. How did the woman I fell in love with become someone completely different?
Welcome to the Narc Free Man Podcast.
Welcome back to the Narc Free Man Podcast. I'm Phillip Dugas, and this show is about helping men understand narcissistic abuse, break free from toxic relationships, and rebuild their lives. Let's get into it. One of the most confusing things about narcissistic relationships is this. Like, many men describe this early stage of the relationship as almost magical. The woman seems extremely attentive, deeply interested in you, emotionally connected. She might say things like, "I have never met anyone like you," or "You are different from other men," or "I feel so safe with you." Now, here's the part most men don't realize until much later. With a narcissistic woman, that early connection is often not authentic bonding, it's strategic attachment. Psychologists call this mirroring. A narcissist studies you. She watches what you value. She learns what makes you feel respected. And then she reflects that identity back to you to build that emotional dependency. I want to tell you a story from my childhood that illustrates this perfectly. When I was younger, my dad met a woman who would eventually become my stepmom. And in the beginning, she was incredibly nice, not just to my dad, to all of us. I mean, she was warm, she was engaging, she was supportive. She acted like she genuinely cared about our family. And from the outside, everything looked great. My dad thought he had found someone who loved him, someone who loved his kids, someone who wanted to build a family. Over time, that version of her started disappearing. The warmth turned into control. The kindness turned into manipulation. And eventually, she became something completely different, a narcissistic abuser. And one of the most painful parts of that situation is that she slowly alienated my dad from his own children. The woman who once seemed loving and supportive ended up driving a wedge between him and us. And when you were a kid watching something like that happen, it creates a ton of confusion because you are thinking, how can someone go from being so nice to being so destructive? But now that I understand narcissistic psychology, that pattern makes perfect sense. You see, female narcissists start relationships with what psychologists call the idealization phase. This phase is extremely powerful. During this stage, you are admired, you are validated, you are emotionally elevated. You feel like the most important person in her life. But here's the key insight. The idealization phase isn't about love. It's about attachment creation. The narcissist is building an emotional bond that will later give them leverage. Because once you are emotionally invested, once you believe this woman is special, you are much more likely to tolerate behavior later that you normally wouldn't accept. Eventually, something starts changing. Not dramatically, but little by little. You notice small things here and there, like little criticisms, passive-aggressive comments, blame shifting. If you bring up something that hurt you, the conversation suddenly flips. Instead of addressing the issue, she becomes the victim. She might say things like, "Why are you attacking me?" Or "I can't believe you'd think that about me." And suddenly, before you know it, you are apologizing. Not because you did something wrong, but because you raised the issue. That pattern repeats over and over again. And slowly, the relationship dynamic changes. You stop expressing concerns. You start regulating your behavior. You begin walking on eggshells. Another reason this dynamic is so confusing is because of the public image. Many narcissistic women appear incredibly charming in public. People might say things like, "She seems amazing. She's so sweet. You are lucky to have her." But behind closed doors, it's a completely different reality. Criticism, emotional withdrawal, subtle humiliation, manipulation. And when you try explaining that to people, they struggle to believe you. And that isolation strengthens the narcissistic dynamic. Back to the show. Many men stay in these toxic relationships much longer than they intended. And it's not because they're weak, it's because narcissists trigger something powerful in men. Empathy. You keep thinking, she's been through a lot. Maybe she just needs patience. Maybe if I love her better, things will improve. But the problem isn't trauma. The problem is accountability. A healthy partner can say, "You are right, I hurt you." A narcissistic partner cannot. And without accountability, the pattern never changes. Eventually, many men reach a moment of realization. They step back and ask themselves, why do I feel emotionally exhausted all the time? Why do I feel like I'm constantly defending myself? Why do I feel like I'm losing my identity in this relationship? And once that moment happens, the fog starts lifting. You start seeing the patterns, the manipulation, the psychological control. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. So if you've experienced this pattern, you are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are definitely not alone. So many good men get trapped in toxic relationships with narcissistic women because they lead with empathy, but empathy without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. If you want a deeper breakdown of these dynamics, my book, The Narcissistic Wife, explains the psychology behind female narcissism, her manipulation tactics, and why so many men get trapped and stay for years. You can find that on Amazon or Audible. And if you are serious about rebuilding your life after narcissistic abuse, check out my upcoming training called the Break Free and Rebuild Challenge. I'll link that down in the description below. Until next time, stay steady, stay strong, and stay narc free.